Trackmania is a game about reaching for perfection. The objective is pretty simple. Drive your car through all the checkpoints and into the finish as fast as possible. But in spite of this simplicity, or perhaps because of it, people have spent thousands of hours trying to drive a pixel closer to the wall, trying to pull off the game's insane shortcuts just to save a single hundredth of a second. And through the 17 years since its release, the records on the 65 campaign tracks have become near perfect. Or at least, so everyone thought. Because in 2021, the Trackmania player Donna Digo released a task tool, a software which allowed players to create theoretical runs through tools like frame by frame and machine brute forcing. These runs were not allowed on the leaderboard, but existed to explore the possibilities of the game. And instantly following its release, the chasm between humans and actual perfection was revealed. In the span of 2 short weeks, players used the tool to beat all 65 world records in the game, most of them with incredible time sync. At first, these runs were seen as the peak of human creativity, the tool allowing for some absurd theory crafting, no longer bound by the limits of human execution. But in the strive to make these runs truly perfect, a new trick was found. On any given track, if you reached enough speed, you could land on your nose and start flying. It was a truly groundbreaking discovery, as it was a new way to gain speed, and potentially to break records. But as people discovered how these nose boosts actually worked, it became clear that this was a machine-only trick, completely outside human capabilities. And as people got better at using the tool, these runs started getting more and more extreme. They were the embodiment of the game's goal, the closest thing we have to perfection. They looked nothing like Trackmania. They looked alien, almost like a mistake. It was this horror that befell the board game of Go in 2016, when Google created a program that beat the world champion at the time, Lee Sedol. It was an incredible shock, as for ages, Go had been a human game, played not through raw calculation, but through intuition. Up front, it's a very simple game, only having one kind of piece and only one kind of move. The goal is to surround more space than your opponent, but because of the 19 by 19 board and the many simultaneous battles, there are more possible positions in Go than atoms in 1,000 universes. If you were to ask a grandmaster why they played a given move, the answer is often enough, because it felt right. The intuitive nature of the game, as well as the failures of previous AI, had led people to believe machines wouldn't catch up for decades. In the press release before the match, even the world champion himself thought it would be an easy 5-0 victory. The result ended up being 4-1 in favor of the computer. It left the community in shock. As Oliver Roeder put it in his book 7 Games, it was as if some hard-won scaffolding, man-made and climbable, had been toppled and replaced with an inscrutable monolith. But the real horror came from how AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol. Because it was different from Deep Blue, the chess program which had beaten Garry Kasparov 2 decades earlier. Deep Blue was guided by human knowledge. It evaluated positions based on how humans thought they should be played. It had entire opening books manually entered in, and alongside AI researchers, it was worked on by a top grandmaster. It, of course, also analyzed around 200 million positions per second. It was this combination of human and computing power that allowed the engine to beat the chess world champ. Its advantage came from its calculations, allowing it to scan many more moves, much deeper into the future. But in the end, its moves did make sense. The machine showed we were climbing the right mountain, it was just much further up. Because Deep Blue had been made to play like a perfect human. AlphaGo had been made to play perfect. After being given some top level games to study, AlphaGo then learned by playing itself millions of times. The resulting play was not built on human principles, but on an unseen, alien intuition. Perhaps the best example of this is move 37 of the second game. The AI played what human masters considered a slack move, a move that was too inefficient and allowed for the opponent to gain initiative. The commentators thought it was a mistake, some kind of bug in the software, as it went against everything that humans thought they knew about the game. But sure enough, as the game progressed, this move connected the other Blackstones perfectly, and after another 170 moves, Lee Sedol resigned. AlphaGo had learned the game without human foundations, and realized that many of those foundations were wrong. Throughout the 5-game series, AlphaGo continued to play these bad moves, and they continued to dazzle the world champion. Just like the nose boost, it proved that humans weren't just far from the peak, they hadn't even reached the mountain. This advancement in AI continued with a model that was shown 0 human games, which quickly became even better than AlphaGo. It played chess as well, where it also discovered a new way of playing. Perhaps the best description of this horror came 20 years earlier, in the face of endgames that took more than 200 moves to solve. The moves are beyond comprehension. They are awesome, almost scary, because you know they are the truth. It's like being revealed the meaning of life, but you don't understand a word. And perhaps more terrifying than these alien supercomputers is the fact that this problem was entirely self-created. Like the AI overlords from the sci-fi movies, these computers were made through hundreds of painstaking hours by us. One of the first of these machines was born from the most familiar of human impulses, to simply be the best. Jonathan Schaefer became a chess master at only 16 years of age, but quickly realized he was never going to be a world champion. So he turned to programming, and in 1989 started his work on a computer to play checkers, or draughts if you're British. His goal was not to reach perfection, but simply to create the best checkers player the world had ever seen. Schaefer's opponent was the best player of any game. His name was Marion Tinsley, and his resume is that of legends. He won the checkers world title in 1955 and remained undefeated in match play until his death in 1995. In that time, he only lost 5 individual games to human beings. Through all of human history, he might be the closest anyone has gotten to perfection, and he was the ultimate goal for Schaefer. Now, Schaefer didn't have the entirety of Google to support his project, but what he did have was a frankly unhealthy obsession with his program. In the early years of the computer, he would manually enter entire opening books into the machine, and even go as far as waking in the middle of the night to make sure the computer was still making progress. He treated it as a child of his, much to the displeasure of his actual child and wife at the time. But through the hundreds of hours between Schaefer and his partner Norman Traylor, Chinook quickly rose to the top of the checkers world. In 1990, it finished second in the US Championship, behind only Marion Tinsley. This kicked off a match for the title of world champion in 1992, and with Chinook continuing its progress, it would be the hardest match of Tinsley's career. But if Tinsley was scared, he showed none of it. In a pre-match press release, he stated, "I have a better programmer than Chinook. His was Jonathan, mine was the Lord, and I don't intend to let down my programmer." And so the greatest game of checkers started. Across 2 weeks of play, the machine fought hard, playing better than any human in the world. Except for Tinsley. After 39 games, Chinook had won 2, 33 had been drawn, and Tinsley won 4. Humanity prevailed, to the great joy of Tinsley himself. The match revitalized a love for the game in him, and he and Schaefer quickly arranged a rematch. This second game, however, would never be finished. After 6 draws, Tinsley complained about his stomach for what would later be diagnosed as cancer. He resigned from the match, and in 1995, he tragically passed away. Now, with no one left to challenge Chinook, this quickly withered Schaefer's desire for competition. And so his goals shifted. Having completed his desire to be the best, he turned his attention to being perfect. He set out to solve the game of checkers more through the lens of science and math than the art of the game. Marion Tinsley once said, "Playing chess is like looking over an endless ocean. Checkers is like a bottomless pit." But in 2007, Schaefer reached the bottom. He mathematically proved that checkers, if played perfectly, was always a draw. His years of obsessive work had led him to the ultimate ending, and in doing so, he killed all possible narrative. Even though man will never reach this level of perfection, the mere existence of it cast a shadow over the game. In the eyes of the public, it confirmed the game as simplistic and a lesser version of chess. It was the final story to come out of competitive checkers, and it all but disappeared from the media after. The community that did survive stagnated. Schaefer had uncovered absolute perfection, and with it, he had revealed an ugly truth. Reaching perfection marks a permanent ending for that pursuit. Because who would ever play a solved game? For checkers, the ending is boring. In Trackmania, the ending looks like a buggy mess. I see the car fly, and it is the fastest way possible. It is the embodiment of the game's goal. It is ugly. It is inhuman, and it doesn't feel like Trackmania anymore. So is this the end of the road? Is the fate of every human pursuit just to be overshadowed by machines of our own creation? Or is there a story beyond just perfection? When Kasparov lost in 1997, these questions were more prevalent than ever. With the attention of the entire world, the apocalyptic headlines wrote themselves. They spoke of a future world dominated by monstrously intelligent, utterly unfeeling AI. Deep Blue had made the gap between humans and perfection visible. With every new engine, this gap only ever seemed to grow. Humans continued to challenge the machines, but to increasingly demoralizing, and frankly still results. In 2005, 8 years after Kasparov was beaten by Deep Blue, the chess community would get its last win against an elite engine. The story of man versus machine was over, and humanity had lost. But unlike checkers, where the engine proved that the pit had a bottom, the engine in chess revealed that the ocean didn't. Whether through quiet moves that didn't matter until 40 moves later, or through insane king walks, the gap represented opportunity. Instead of an opponent, the machine became a tool to improve. The competition returned to human versus human, with all its drama and emotions included, but at a higher level than ever. It was this adaptation that allowed the chess community to overcome the alien god of Alpha Zero. Because by seeing it as a tool instead of an opponent, this alien truth was not a threat. Surpassing the nihilism that came with human futility, there was a curiosity to further understand the depth of the chessboard. The community read its self-taught playstyle as instructions, written in a language they didn't yet understand. And through exhaustive analysis of its game, Players like Magnus Carlsen tried to translate this new language, tried to make the alien a bit more human. Ironically enough, today our relationship with engines has been reversed. If you watch a game of top-level chess, it's a dramatic battle between two humans, while a cast of commentators, aided by the perfect knowledge of the machine, makes sense of the moves being played. The computer that once was the enemy of mankind now serves as a kind of art critic, using cold logic to help us appreciate the depths and beauty of the game being played. The alien makes the human more human. But this adaptation hasn't come without a cost. Although we found a practical solution, part of the philosophical wound remains. And to really understand this, we have to return to the story of Go. Because the rise of AlphaGo was not just another reminder of humanity's imperfection. It threatened not just the continued existence of the game, but the very nature of human creativity. For centuries, Go had been a canvas for human expression. If you were a fan of the game, you could identify who played each other just by looking at a replay of the moves. Players had their own philosophies, their own unique manner of playing. Go, and to a similar degree chess, were art forms in this way. But with the arrival of an objective goodness, these distinctions have all but faded away. No longer can there be a battle between ideas, a fight between attacking and positional play, when there is a correct answer. It diminished the romantic mystique of the games in favor of more optimal play. And with the mystique, the engine took Lee Sedol as well. The 18-time champion retired in 2019, stating a simple reason: even if I become the number one, there is an entity that cannot be defeated. The mere existence of the AI, the existence of an unclimbable peak, took the pleasure of the game away from him. But the fate of human creativity isn't just decided by those at the top of the world. Sometimes it's decided by communities, through Discord servers, by the collective players of the game. And so finally, we return to Trackmania, a game only about reaching perfection, whatever means necessary. Or so everyone thought. Faced with the ugliness of perfect Trackmania, there was no philosophical crisis. However alien the runs looked, they were born from human ideas, created by humans with a tool. And for some, the nose boost was the ultimate discovery, the path to perfection seemingly revealed. The nose boosts were the truth, and they sought to use them as much as possible. In doing so, however, it divided the community. These runs showed the absolute limits of Trackmania, there was no debate. But in doing so, the incredibly varied tracks of the game become increasingly monotone. Any track with a possible nose boost became a race to gather enough speed, at which point you took flight. And so part of the community decided this was not the game they wanted to play. In an attempt to keep alive the magic of perfection, they simply changed the rules. They created a new category of tasks, ones that banned the nose boost and other inhuman tricks. For them, the tool returned to its more artistic purpose. Human creativity, not limited by means of execution. Even in this sub-community of a racing game that was supposedly all about speed, some people still chose human. For routes that could eventually be done by humans, or even for sheer aesthetics. The runs still resemble perfection, just a more human version of it. Whether through checkers, chess, or Go, there is a recurring choice to value the messy, imperfect, and undeniably human narrative. Today, computers play online chess tournaments 24/7. They tirelessly play the highest level of chess on Earth. But in the absence of a story, of a human to root for, the average viewership hangs only around 30 people. Instead, an average of 200,000 people chose to watch the recent, real World Championship. And as the world becomes increasingly more infected with AI, this choice has been forced upon us more and more. But sometimes, just sometimes, a miracle happens, and we don't have to choose. The greatest speedrun I have ever seen is a 4-second long Trackmania run, containing only a single right turn. The previous record was a 4.63, set 18 years ago, only 4 days after the game had been released. And for nearly 2 decades, that was it. Some people tried, but it was quickly dismissed as a solved record, and the fact that the game rounded to the 100th seemingly made it unbeatable. As this was an older game of Trackmania, there was no task to prove it either. In 2023, someone recreated the track in Nations Forever and proved that here a 4.62 was possible. However, looking deeper at the replay revealed a margin of 0.001. And accounting for the slightly different physics between games, this might as well have been the end of the story. Because who would ever play a solved game? Who would ever play a single right turn, unsure if the time they're going for is even possible? Logic was that player, in search of proof of an unbeatable record of perfection. He started playing the track. And for over 50 hours, tying the world record more than 1,600 times, the proof escaped him. But sure enough, in the most incredible act of human defiance, Logic eventually managed to go 0.01 faster. He named the replay file Eternal, because even if you let a perfect machine play this track for 100 years, all he could do is match Logic.